In this video I'm gonna build a vertical belt sander station with a tilting table. I've had one with a fixed table for a couple of years, but now I came up with a pretty neat mechanism for tilting the table, so I'm gonna build a new one. For materials I mainly used scraps. So this, for example, is a piece of melamine coated Baltic birch plywood that I had lying around, and this is a leftover floorboard from a recent restoration project. By the way, if you're interested in how I built this table saw, I made a whole series about that. The link is in the description. The pieces of flooring will be the supports for the sander and the table, and they will be connected with this piece. The jigsaw produces a bit of a rough edge, so I use my horizontal belt sander station to smooth that out. Before driving in the screws, I secured the pieces with some super glue to hold them in place temporarily. Next is the piece that attaches to the sander. The only two mounting points are those two threaded holes, and I needed to transfer their location onto that block. For the post that's gonna hold up the sander, I found this piece of birch in one of our firewood stacks. It's quite a nice piece and way too good to burn it. And now it's already starting to look like something. Next are the supports for the tilting table. I wanted a system where the axis of rotation is in one plane with the tabletop, so that there doesn't form a gap between the sandpaper and the table when the table's tilted. Trunnions would be the obvious solution, but they are very hard to make. So this table will be guided by circular slots that ride on 2 or 3 studs. This has the same effect as trunnions, but is much easier to make. The motion won't be quite as smooth and precise, but that doesn't really matter here. The jigsaw with one of these straight teeth blades does a remarkable job of cutting out these slots, almost free of tear out. The first guide is done and it turned out quite nice, and I made the second one off of camera. Next is the table. It needs to be beveled on one side so it doesn't run into the sander when the table's tilted down. I cut rabbets into the table to cover the guides and make it easy to align them with the tabletop. Now I could use the table as a template to mark the locations of the bolts that the table's gonna ride on. And I used a breadpoint drill to mark the exact locations. I glued in the bolts using some construction adhesive. I purposely used long bolts so that the guides will ride on the smooth part of the shank. After tightening those nuts, I can put my entire body weight onto the guide and it will not move. I left some space between those screws for adding a miter slot, but then I decided that that would just be too gimmicky. And I'm also not gonna draw a scale or anything onto those guides, because I have a protractor and there's really no need for the hassle. And finally adding some rubber feet to keep it from sliding around. And it's done! The vertical belt sander station with a 90-degree tilting table. I can comfortably switch the belt sander on and off, so there's really no need for some safety switch. The tilting table really makes this sander a lot more versatile. I can now, for example, sand conical objects. And that is of course the big advantage of this setup over a disc sander.